Morning church, welcome to Edge Church. It's great to be here this morning with you. We're just going to come straight to the word, but just before we do, I'm just going to say welcome to church. It's great to have you here with us, and I'm just going to read something from Psalm 139 that I really pray will just bless you today and that you'll be able to take it into the week ahead. You know, we've been talking, Pastor Dave's been talking about big-hearted people. And so I'm going to read this, just a couple of verses from Psalm 139, and it's entitled, You Know All About Me. And it says, Lord, you know everything that there is to know about me. You perceive every moment, every movement of my heart and soul. You understand my every thought before it even enters my mind. You are so intimately aware of me, Lord. You read my heart like an open book. Isn't that good? Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it maybe isn't. You read my heart like an open book. You know all the words that I'm about to speak before I even start a sentence. You know every step I will take before my journey even begins. I just feel that somebody needs to know that today, that God's got you. He knows what's in your heart and he knows what's in your future. And it just goes on to say, just as I close, you've gone into my future to prepare the way, and in kindness you follow behind me, to spare me from the harm of my past. With your hand of love upon my life, you impart a blessing to me. Isn't that good? Isn't that lovely? And you know, I just want to leave that with you, just that thought that God knows everything about you. Those who are the closest to you, your husband, your wife, your children, your family, your partner, whoever, might think they know you, but there could be something deep in your heart that they don't know about, but God knows, and he's there to help you through whatever situation you are in, because he loves you. He knows what's in your heart, and he loves you anyway. I'm going to pray God's blessing upon you this week. We're going to hand over now to Pastor Dave, and we just pray that you have a fantastic week, church, just knowing that God's with you and he's got you.
Good morning, church. As you can see, if you're very observant, we're not there this morning. We're not here. By the time you're watching this, I should be driving down the A1 towards London to start our annual August break, and then after that, who knows? We're not quite sure what we're doing after that, but I didn't want to... What I've done is, I'm going to be quite honest with you this morning, is this message is what's left. What I mean by that is, I had some stuff left from the last few weeks, which I didn't get to talk about. So this message is really a mixture of all the stuff that I didn't want to leave unfinished and I didn't finish talking about, and so quite appropriately I've called it The Leftovers. Okay, so this message is called, the title is, if you're making notes, The Leftovers. Okay? Because I didn't want to go away and come back, when we come back, with this still hanging over and left over. What does it want to begin a new season with new messages, etc., etc. The leftovers. The best part of my breakfast during the week, my warm, flaky breakfast croissants, the best part are the bits that are left over. Okay? They're the crumbly bits that are left over at the end. I've got to tell you, but when those bits are left over, to me, that's the best part of the croissant. The bits that are left over after. And I would love to see Caleb eat one of these croissants. When he eats a sausage roll, it's like an explosion. It's like somebody dropped a bomb, because the sausage roll is all over. I can imagine him eating the croissant, and the croissant is just, it happens to me when I eat a croissant, it's all over the table, it's all over the floor, and it's the bits that are left, and I love scooping them up. And I know some of you aren't as cultured as I am, so for you, I know some of you are thinking of leftover pizza, aren't you? Yeah, the pizza the next morning is even better than the night before, right? Is that right? Yes, I can see somebody's nodding their head this morning for the uncultured people among you. So it's the leftovers. Really, that's what I'm talking about this morning, is the leftovers. You know, I was thinking about this just this afternoon. The summer, which we're into now, makes you glad that you didn't quit in the winter, right? Yeah, enjoying the summer makes you glad you didn't give it up in the winter. The blessing makes you glad you didn't quit in the testing. Am I right? Aren't some of you glad this morning you didn't back down, you didn't go back, you didn't quit during the testing, because now you're in the blessing. And the harvest makes you glad you didn't quit in the drought, right? For everybody going through the drought this morning, going through hardship this morning, I've got to tell you, it's worth getting through that to get to the harvest, to get to the summer, to get to the blessing. The leftovers. Let's read from 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 11. I'm reading from the New King James Version. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 11. Paul says this to the Corinthian church. He says it this way. He says, For what is passing away was, emphasis on was, everybody say was, I can hear, was glorious. Okay? What remains, in other words, what is left over is much more. Everybody say more. More glorious. For what is passing away was glorious. What remains, what is left over is much more glorious. I want to talk this morning to people in church and watching this online later on perhaps. People who are leftovers from the battle. People who are leftovers from the storm. People who are left over from the fire. The battle and the storm and the fire took some people out. But this morning I'm talking to people who are leftovers. Left over from the attack. Because the attack took some people out and set some people back and took some people's dreams and stole some people's vision. But this morning I'm talking over some leftovers from the attack. Leftovers from the pruning. God does pruning, don't you, in churches and in people's lives and among friends. He does some pruning. He does some cutting away of people, which leaves you with leftovers. So you're the person I'm talking to this morning, the person who is left over from the lockdown, left over from restrictions and all that kind of stuff that we've been through. The leftovers. I wonder how many leftovers are in church this morning. Obviously you are leftovers because you're still here, you're still there. We thank God for the past. Amen? We thank God for the past this morning. We thank God this morning for every person who has come through our doors in all the years that we've been here, for every person who's come through the doors. We thank God this morning for every person who made decisions. And, there have been a lot of people over 15 years who've come through our doors, through the various buildings and venues we've been in, and they've made decisions. We thank God this morning for every person who served, who was on team, every person this morning who we baptized, every child this morning, and every family who dedicated their children. Thank God this morning for what and who was. Because Paul says, don't dismiss what was. He said, what is passing away was glorious. It was glorious. It was good. It was good. It was great. We've had some great times in church. We've had some great people in church. We've had some good people in church. We've had some good people preaching, good people serving in church. But this morning, what I want to talk about, you can't build and you can't go forward with what and with who was. Are you with me? Anybody with me this morning? Say amen. You can only go forward and build with what and who remains. Does that make sense to us this morning? You can't build on who was here and what was here. You can't go forward with who used to. We can only go forward with people like yourselves this morning who are in church this morning, physically in church, and here this morning with who remains. You see, now it's about the leftovers. And I want to make this message about every single one of you who are left over. What remains, Paul says, is much more glorious. In other words, what and who is left over is greater, will be greater. What or who is left over is the best bit. That's what Paul says. Paul says it much better. He says more glorious. I'm talking about the best bits that are left over, greater. Number one this morning is I'm going to go three quick points, okay? 3 very quick points. I might talk quickly to get them through quickly, but we need to get through 3 quick points and I'm out of here. Number one, the leftovers made it through the pain and the weariness. Are you with me? The leftovers made it through the pain and the weariness. We all get pain. We all get weary. We all get worn down and we all get worn out. Are you with me? Anybody been through some of that? And I've got to go back before I finish this message to Mark 12. And we talked about this for a few weeks, about this lady. Jesus called her a poor widow. I'm going to, in the message, in verse 44 in the message, Mark 12:44 in the message, I dwelt on this a couple of weeks ago and really brought it out. The Bible says, Jesus said she gave what she couldn't afford. Do you remember that message? She gave what she couldn't afford. And you see, giving for her, it was painful for her. I don't think we think about that too much. When the Bible says she gave what she couldn't afford, what did she do for food that night? What did she do to buy stuff to eat and to drink? How did she get through the rest of the day? And how did she get through the rest of the week? How did she have provision? Because she gave what she couldn't afford. She had nothing left. It was painful. But she gave through pain. And there's such a thing this morning as painful praise. There are people this morning who are worshipping and are praising and are singing and are lifting their hands this morning, and it's painful praise. The praise is coming through something painful. There's painful faith. People who are believing God's word this morning for somebody, for something, for somebody else, for themselves. And it's painful faith this morning because your faith is coming from the pain. Do you understand? Some people this morning, as you raised your hands in worship and you sang the songs, there's such a thing as painful worship. Worship that came from a heart that's in pain, from a mind that's in pain, from a week where you've had pain, but the worship came through the pain. You see, that's why I think Paul says that the leftovers are more glorious. Because people who've never experienced pain, or people who quit in pain, or people who quit when things don't work out for them, or people who stop worshipping when it's painful, they don't know what this is. They don't know what painful praise and painful faith and painful worship is because they stop at the pain. Paul says the people who are left over, the people who still worship and still praise and still have the faith to believe in pain are more glorious. Are you with me? You see, this whole story in Mark 12, I looked at it quite a lot, and I came to this conclusion that the whole story is not just about money. We make it about money. We make it about giving. We make it about finance. But actually, the story isn't about money. You see, let me explain this. Give me a minute to explain this. You see, some people, right? Some people are big-hearted with money, but stingy with encouragement. Have you got that? Some people are big-hearted when it comes to giving, but stingy with support. Some people are big-hearted with finance, and they will gladly support and gladly give, but they're stingy with their time. Haven't got time to serve, haven't got time to come to church, but I'll send a check, but I'll do online banking, but I haven't got time to come to church. Big-hearted with words. How many people this morning know some wordy people? Yeah? But stingy with commitments. All the talk and say all the good things, but they're not there on a Sunday. They're not there to serve. They're not there midweek. And I want to say, God, thank you this morning. My prayer and my prayers this morning is God, thank you, and God bless the leftovers this week. For every person left over. You know, I was in my favourite bakery shop just a few weeks ago. My favourite bakery shop, Greg's. And as I walked through the door, an unusual thing happened, because in the place where there should have been croissants, there was no croissants. I know. I almost stopped coming to church. I tell you, I almost quit the ministry. Because that's just to me. And so the lady says to me, I'm very sorry, we have no croissants this morning. I said, oh, it's okay. She said, we're going to put them in the bin because they burnt. And straight away, I gave her a lecture. I says, no, don't throw them away. I said, I'll have them. I love burnt croissants. And she looked at me seriously. Really? I'll have what you were going to throw away. I love them, so she gave me them for free. Okay, blessing, good, yep. Gave them for free. And when I walked out of that Greg's, I thought of all the people who had been burnt, and all the people who had been hurt, and all the people who had been thrown away. And I'm going to tell, this is for all the leftovers that are hurt this morning. For all the leftovers who've been hurt, for all the leftovers who've been burnt, for all the leftovers who've been damaged, for all the people, all the leftovers who are imperfect this morning, and society and people and friends will put you to one side, and God says, I'll have them. God says, I'll use them. I will use and I will bless and I will have all the leftovers. Come on, somebody. I'm waiting till the applause dies down before point number 2. Amen. Number 2. I like this one. The leftovers made it through the silence. The leftovers made it through the silence. What do I mean by that? I don't know what's worse, okay? I don't know how you feel about this morning. I don't know what's worse. The sound of the battle or the sound of silence. And as family and as church, we've had both. We know what it's like, the sound of the battle, and we also know what it's like, the sound of silence, the sound of nothing happening. At least in the battle, something's happening. At least in the battle, you're fighting and you're moving forward. When it's the sound of silence and there's nothing to hear, we've had both. And I think to me, the silence is more worrying. Let me put it like this. Guys, married guys, if your wife goes silent, I think you might have said something or not said something. You might have done something or not done something. I think there might be trouble ahead. A talking wife is a good thing. It's not in the Bible, but it should be, shouldn't it? But a silent wife. But I'm talking this morning, the sound of silence. I'm talking this morning about the silence of unanswered prayer. You with me? The silence of unanswered prayer. The silence of no words from God. The silence of no direction from God. The silence of you haven't got a Bible verse to hang on to. And I'm going to go back to Mark 12 again for the last time. Mark 12 and verse 43 this time in the New King James. because I hadn't seen this before until I looked at getting through that silence. Because some people this morning might be experiencing in your life a silence. You've been through storms. You know what the sound of a storm, you know what the sound of a battle, the sound of a fight sounds like. But this morning you're going through a sound of silence. There's nothing. There's no answers. There's no words. Well, this is a word for you this morning. Mark 12:43, New King James. I just saw this just this week. Listen to this. Mark 12:43. So Jesus called his disciples. Have you got that? Everybody say, his disciples. Jesus called his disciples to himself and said to them. Everybody say them. Said to them. So what's the relevance of that? The relevance is Jesus spoke about the woman, but he never spoke one word to her. Have you noticed that before? Jesus boasted about the woman, but he never spoke directly to the woman herself. She didn't have a word from God. She just did the right thing. And when you haven't got a word from God, and when God hasn't answered your prayer yet, just do the right thing. When you don't know what to do the right thing. Okay? When your phone is silent, that's a sound of silence. When the encouragement is silent, when the acknowledgement is silent, when the appreciation is silent, when nobody's saying amen and nobody's clapping, just do the right thing, just keep on going. When the affirmation is silent, when you just need somebody to pat you on the back and say, you're doing a good job. But when there's silence, in the silence, do the right thing. Leftovers, the leftover people made it through the silence. Still here this morning. Still part of the leftovers because we made it through the times when God went silent, when the phone went silent, when the encouragement went silent. Let me encourage somebody this morning. In the silence, keep serving. In the silence, keep giving. In the silence, keep giving support. Keep showing support. Keep showing up. In the silence, still sacrifice. In the silence, still praise. Without a word from God. Just do the right thing, okay? And finally, number 3, I'm going to finish with this one. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good place to finish. I can go on holiday after this, wherever we go, and I can just say, yes, I gave you what was left. I gave you everything. I gave you the best bits. I gave you the leftovers. Number 3, the leftovers are great finishers. I'm talking to some people this morning, and you are great finishers. Let me go to Matthew 14:20. We all know this story. Unchurched people know this story. It's the final scripture, final Bible verse. Matthew 14:20 in the Message. In the Message. Bearing in mind what I've just said, that the leftovers are great finishers. Might have had a shocking middle. Might have had a rough middle. Might have had a terrible start. Might have had some awful seasons, but the leftovers are great finishers. Matthew 14:20. The story, of course, of the 5 loaves, 2 fishes. We all know it. And the very last verses in the Message, it says this. The disciples gathered 12 baskets of leftovers. Did you see that in the Bible before? Have you seen that before? You know the story? In the Message, they gathered 12 baskets of leftovers. That's incredible. It's incredible because he only started with 5 loaves and 2 fish. They ended up with more than left their basket. Right? What left their basket was 5 loaves and 2 fish, and what they ended up with, what they finished with, the leftovers were 12 baskets. And I'm going to say to somebody this morning, you're going to end up with more than left your basket. You might have given and given and served and served and sacrificed and prayed and believed. Now I've got to tell you this morning, and you've given out of that basket. You've given out what you had. She gave what she couldn't afford. And some people are like that this morning. You have given and sacrificed over and above. And I've got to tell somebody this morning, this is a word for somebody this morning. You're wanting a word from God, this is this. You're going to end up with more than left your basket. I'm believing that for church. I'm believing that for church with all my heart this morning. As we start a new season in September, I'm believing with all my heart that this church, that Edge Church, is going to end up with more than left our baskets. Can somebody believe with me this morning for that? We're going to end up with more than left. Oh, wouldn't that be a blessing? I'm believing for that. I'm praying for that. I'm believing. And I believe that's a word from God for our church and for people this morning. Oh, they finished up better than they started. They finished up better than they started. The end was better than the beginning. Oh, I love it. They produced more. Now, finish right now. They produced more. When you think of what actually had just happened, right? When you think of what just happened with the 5 loaves, 2 fishes, baskets, 15,000 people, they produced more despite being broken. The bread would be broken. The bread would be torn apart. The fish would be torn apart. But after it had been broken, after it had been torn apart, after it had been given out, after they had given everything they had, they finished, they produced more. And maybe there's somebody this morning, a leftover, and boy, you've been broken. Something broke you. Some of us know what that's like. Some of you have been torn apart by battles, by storms, by criticism, by complaints, by someone leaving your life, by a marriage breaking up, by a family breakup, by illness, by sickness, whatever it is this morning. You're like the 5 loaves and 2 fish that were given out, and they were broken up. They were torn apart. For every person this morning who has been torn apart, and every person this morning who has been broken, I've got to tell you something. You're going to produce more. You're going to produce more than what was taken away from you. And I'm believing that for you, and I'm believing that for Edge Church. When all this summer period is over, we get back together again in December as a church, and we know who the leftovers are. We know who is with us. We know what our 12 baskets looks like. I'm believing, church, and we are believing as leadership. We're believing as a family that we are going to produce more. We're going to finish it better than what we started with. Can somebody say amen and believe that with us this morning? Will you stand with us this morning and believe that? Leftovers this morning, for every leftover, you are a blessing. In fact, Paul says, I love how Paul describes you. Paul says you are more glorious. How does that make you feel this morning? How does it feel this morning to be more glorious? Because you're a leftover. Our prayer this summer is that God will bless every leftover person this morning. Every person who is still believing with us, every person still supporting us, every person being through storms and battles and lockdowns and lockaways and all that kind of stuff and rubbish in your life. We pray for you. We're praying for you this week. We're praying for you this summer. We look forward to getting back together with you very soon. And when we do, we're going to have a leftover party. The leftovers are here. And we're going to finish better than when we started. Can you say amen So that, have a great week, church, and we'll see you real soon. Take care. We love you. God bless you.